Have you ever thought you knew someone, and then something comes out that makes you pause? I mean, what if there's another layer we didn't see before? That's exactly where we are today. A new voice has emerged in the Amber Heard vs. Johnny Depp saga, and it's a voice that makes you stop and think. Amber Heard's ex-girlfriend is now speaking up, saying she believes Amber was in a very violent relationship with Johnny Depp. That's a heavy claim. You might be wondering, what exactly did she say? Why is she saying it now? And what does it mean for how the public sees both Amber and Johnny? So let's talk it through step by step, in bite-sized pieces, like we're at a coffee shop chatting. No complicated terms. Just plain talk, with a bit of feeling, a bit of insight, and a lot to uncover. Let's start with who this ex-girlfriend is, and why her voice matters. This woman, Amber's former girlfriend, was in a relationship with Amber before the whole Depp-Heard courtroom drama took center stage. You probably haven't heard of her before now, because she kept a low profile, stayed out of the headlines, and didn't seek attention. She wasn't in the courtroom, she wasn't giving interviews, at least, not until now. Now, something changed. She's come forward, in a public statement, saying that it's clear that Amber was in a very violent relationship. She said she believes every bit of it. That wording is strong, she's not hedging or second-guessing. She says she believes it, all of it. That's not a casual comment. That's a full-stop kind of statement. When someone says that, it demands attention. It makes you pause and wonder, what did she see? What happened behind closed doors? If you followed the Depp-Heard saga at all, even just a little bit, then you probably already know it wasn't just any celebrity dispute. This thing blew up. It became one of the most publicized, controversial, and emotionally charged legal battles in recent history. And it didn't just play out in the courtroom, it took over the internet, the news cycle, social media, and even dinner table conversations around the world. It wasn't just a case. It became a cultural event. Johnny Depp, one of the biggest names in Hollywood, known for his roles in films like Pirates of the Caribbean, Edward Scissorhands, and Fantastic Beasts, filed a defamation lawsuit against his ex-wife, actress Amber Heard. The reason? Amber had written an op-ed piece that was published in the Washington Post in 2018. In it, she described herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse. Now, she didn't mention Depp by name, but the implication was clear. And for Depp, that implication had consequences, huge ones. He claimed the article ruined his reputation, cost him major movie roles, and basically derailed his career. Amber, in turn, countersued. She alleged that Johnny had defamed her through statements his legal team made to the media. So what started as a defamation suit became a two-way legal war, each accusing the other of lying, abuse, manipulation, and reputational damage. Then came the trial. The courtroom became a stage. For weeks, cameras rolled, capturing every glance, every tear, every word. And those videos? They were live-streamed and clipped and memed and debated on every corner of the internet. Millions of people tuned in daily, watching what felt like a real-life drama series, complete with gasps, awkward pauses, and shocking revelations. And there were plenty of those. Audio recordings between the couple were played out loud, conversations that were raw, angry, chaotic. They argued, they yelled, they cried. At times it was heartbreaking, and at others, confusing. There were disturbing stories of fights that escalated into violence, objects thrown, words screamed. Depp spoke about feeling like he was walking on eggshells. Heard talked about fear, emotional scars, and moments she said she couldn't forget. Then came the testimonies. Depp's time on the stand was long and intense. He painted a picture of someone who had been falsely accused, someone who had lost everything because of one article. He described moments where he said Heard was controlling, aggressive, and emotionally abusive. He denied being violent with her, saying instead that he was the one being mistreated. His lawyers carefully laid out a timeline, trying to show that Heard's story didn't add up. Heard's testimony was just as emotional. She cried while describing alleged abuse, saying she feared for her life during some incidents. She told the court how the relationship changed, how it became darker, more violent, and how she says she tried to protect herself. She spoke about love and fear in the same breath, about wanting the relationship to work but feeling stuck in a toxic cycle. She said her article wasn't about revenge, but about survival and using her voice. It was emotionally exhausting to watch, let alone be a part of. Every single detail was dissected. Experts were called in, psychologists, medical professionals, body language analysts. Friends and employees took the stand. There were texts shown, photos displayed, medical reports read out loud. And every moment had an audience of millions. But here's where things really exploded, on social media. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, people couldn't get enough. Hashtags like hashtag Justice for Johnny Depp and hashtag I Stand with Amber Heard were trending globally. TikTok, especially, became a battlefield of opinions. Clips from the trial were turned into short videos, often edited with music or captions that either mocked or defended one of them. Memes, parodies, opinion pieces, it was everywhere. People were picking sides like it was a sporting event. Some were deeply sympathetic to Depp, saying he had been unfairly targeted by a culture that assumes men can't be victims of abuse. Others defended Heard, saying she was being publicly ridiculed and re-traumatized for speaking up. The court of public opinion was loud, divided, and often brutal. And the irony? Much of that public judgment happened before the trial even ended. By the time the jury delivered its verdict, largely in favor of Johnny Depp, it didn't really calm the storm. It just shifted it. Depp supporters celebrated. Heard supporters mourned what they saw as a failure of justice for survivors. The reaction was intense, immediate, and deeply emotional on both sides. But here's what made this case so unique: it wasn't just about who won in court. It was about how we, as a society, handle stories of abuse, trauma, and public shaming. It forced people to reckon with their own beliefs about victimhood, credibility, and how gender influences those perceptions. It raised tough questions. Can two people be toxic to each other? Can victims make mistakes? Do courtrooms tell the whole truth? And perhaps most importantly, how much do we really know when we're only seeing a filtered version of events? For some, the case showed how quickly people can weaponize social media to build or destroy reputations. For others, it highlighted the courage it takes to speak up, regardless of the outcome. And then there were those who didn't fully side with either of them, who simply saw a deeply broken relationship unfold in the most public way possible. No matter where you stood, one thing was clear: this wasn't just a legal battle. It became a mirror. One that reflected our culture's attitudes about power, pain, and justice. A mirror that forced us to ask whether we listen with empathy, or just react with judgment. And now, with Amber's ex-girlfriend stepping forward to share her perspective, that mirror just got a little more complex. Because if her words are true, if she really did witness signs of a violent relationship, it suggests there's still more to this story than we thought. Maybe what we saw wasn't the full picture. Maybe it never is. But here's the thing: the court looked at evidence that was on paper, voice recordings, and testimony. The public looked at headlines and viral clips. Both perspectives can be incomplete. That's why when someone from Amber's past speaks up, we listen. We absolutely should. So, why is this coming up now? What changed this week to make her share her story? Well, public interest in this story has been huge. Lots of articles, videos, social content. And when a story becomes public, but we only hear certain voices, it can seem like that's the whole truth. But real lives? They're messy. Private. We only see the parts filtered for us. That's why she's coming forward now. Maybe she felt like now was the time. Maybe she hoped someone would listen. Maybe she felt that without this perspective, people might think they already know everything. So she said, in her own quiet way, this happened. When she speaks, she reminds us how houses look okay from the street, but inside there can be a storm. And she wants us to remember that. That's powerful. So what does this mean for how we see Amber and Johnny? Well, it's a reminder that quick judgments rarely tell the full story. We live in a click-to-judge world. We pick sides fast. Viral clips shape opinions. But real relationships? They're not one scene or one moment. They're a series of moments. Moments of love, moments of pain, moments of hurt, moments of kindness. And if someone close to you starts noticing a pattern, loud, repeat behavior, those are the moments that matter most. So her voice adds another layer. It doesn't tell us what to think. But it asks us to stop. To reconsider. To watch, not just the outrageous courtroom clips, but the quiet, repeated moments behind closed doors. Those are the patterns that experts say define whether something is abusive or not. I'm not saying we have all the answers. Far from it. But we have to remember, attitudes and conclusions based on clips or headlines can miss the deeper truth. And that's why this is worth listening to. Let me share a few ideas that may help us see things more clearly. Relationship experts sometimes say that one explosive scene, the shouting match, the slammed door, those are big and noticeable. But more important? The pattern that leads up to them. A pattern of whether one person's voice is often ignored. Whether little boundaries are crossed again and again. Whether someone feels diminished, unsafe, or afraid. And if that's repeated, over time, that's what creates real pain. It's not a single moment. It's the moment after moment after moment. Here's something else. When someone who wasn't in the spotlight, someone who was on the sidelines, speaks up quietly, it sometimes carries real weight. Because they're not trying to make headlines. They're not doing interviews. They're just speaking from memory, from personal experience. That's not show business. That's real life. And when you have that kind of calm, honest voice, it adds a dimension that we can't dismiss so easily. This isn't about pointing fingers without context. It's about acknowledging that there may be more than the glamorous public story. That personal story is rarely simple. It's not about picking a Hollywood side in a lawsuit. It's about listening to someone who says, I saw this, and it hurt. And I think that deserves respect. Here's a question I want to leave you with. Do you think maybe the public rushed to judgment after the trial? Did social media push a certain narrative? And now that we're hearing another layer, are we ready to listen? Let me know, really. I want to hear your take. If you're into this kind of real talk, stories that go beyond the headlines, I've got more where this came from. We just dropped a video called 5 Celebrities Who Spoke Out About Their Toxic Relationships, and What We Missed. It dives into how small actions add up, and how public stories can miss private pain. Check it out after this. And hey, if this helped you think a bit deeper, it'd mean a lot if you tap like, share with a friend, or drop a comment. It helps creators like me keep going, bringing you honest conversation. And if you're new here, I'd really love you to subscribe. We're building something thoughtful, videos that go a little deeper than the surface. Before we wrap, let me say this. Relationships can be like social media filters, some moments are bright, some are dark. But the real story? It's in the everyday. The good days. The bad days. The unfiltered days. So before we draw lines in the sand, maybe we should step back and let all the voices, especially the quiet ones, be heard. Thanks for hanging out and listening. It means a lot that you're open to seeing more. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.